The biggest risk to the global economy is not what the headlines are screaming about. It is something far more boring. Nobody's paying attention to it because it is not loud, but it explains everything you are feeling right now in your finances. The answer starts in Tokyo, specifically in the most boring asset on Earth, Japanese government bonds. Japan has been the duct tape quietly holding the global financial system together for 30 years. And that tape is peeling. Back in the early 90s, Japan's asset bubble burst. Real estate collapsed, stocks collapsed, and the economy hit pause. Japan's central bank cut rates to zero, then below zero. For decades, their bonds paid investors essentially nothing. So imagine you are Alex. You manage $1 billion portfolio, and your domestic bonds pay 0%. What do? You go shopping overseas. Japan became the world's largest foreign buyer of U.S. debt. Effectively, the world's ATM. Here is how the trade worked. Alex borrows yen at near zero rates, converts it into dollars, and buys assets yielding 4%. This became the yen carry trade. Trillions of dollars flowing globally because Japanese borrowing costs were basically free. The whole system relied on one assumption, that Japanese yields would stay near zero forever. In 2024, that assumption broke. Japan raised interest rates for the first time in 17 years. Global markets immediately panicked. Major indices dropped sharply overnight. Suddenly, Alex's trade stops working. Borrowing in yen gets expensive. The free money is no longer free. Capital that left Japan for decades is now returning home. This is called repatriation, and it is one of the biggest threats in markets today. If you found this valuable so far, hit subscribe. This is exactly the kind of content traditional finance media ignores completely. Here is why this affects you directly. Japan was not just buying debt randomly. They were one of the most consistent buyers of long-term U.S. bonds. Daniel explains it simply. The Federal Reserve controls short-term rates, but the 10-year and 30-year yields, those are controlled by supply and demand. When demand for long-term bonds weakens, yields rise to attract new buyers. And rising long-term yields affect everything. Mortgage rates stay high because they track the 10-year Treasury, not the Fed rate. The Fed can cut all it wants. If long-term yields stay elevated, housing affordability stays strained. Stock valuations compress. Corporate credit tightens. Everything slows down. For 30 years, the United States benefited from being on the receiving end of the world's largest carry trade. That era is ending. Traditional media ignores this because it does not trend. Nobody clicks on carry trade repatriation stories. But those are the real threats. Liquidity is the oxygen in markets. When it tightens, the cost of money changes everywhere. This is not a theory. It is already happening. The real threats in markets are never the loud ones. Those are already priced in. The real threats are hiding in plain sight.